I am not Marty Chabert. Vice Chair Collis Temple. So if everybody takes their seats, we can go on and get started. As a reminder, our meeting is being streamed live, so over the internet. So members and those presiding and presenting, please remember that using your microphones, which we do not have in front of us, would be hard to do. So if you can, oh, they're on the table? Oh, we don't have these. Real high tech. It's new. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So if you got cell phones, just put it on silent, mute, vibrate, something that won't make a lot of noise. And we move straight into our committee meeting. So first, Audit Committee, Regent Seal, please call your committee to order, sir.
Yes, could I have a roll call, please?
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Regent Seal.
Here.
Regent Wyatt. Regent Adley. Here. Regent Levy.
Here.
Regent McDonald.
Here.
Regent Meyer.
Present.
Regent Weil.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We have a presentation today from
Can we stop,
our,
Mr. Seal?
excuse me.
Dr. Carl and the panel. I'm going to say.
Oh, good, please.
We had a great time yesterday. If I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. Several of you all probably were a little bit more informed than I was, but having lived in Baton Rouge for 39 years, and knowing that Pennington, the significance, but quite honestly, after yesterday, I realized how significant it really was. Not just for our community, and not just for Louisiana, but for the world, actually. I was saying 99.9% of the people that drive by here don't realize that. So, Dr. Kerwin, we got to work on that marketing program, because it is absolutely amazing what is taking place right here under our noses, and I was just blown away and pleasantly surprised and extremely proud to be associated with Pennington through the Board of Regents. And so we appreciate what you all put together for us yesterday. We'd like to hear from you right now.
Thank you very much. Indeed, yeah, Pennington is, I think, a jewel in the crown of Louisiana. And as somebody who moved here a year ago from Cleveland Clinic, I really recognized the value and the importance of Pennington, not just locally, but nationally and internationally. So, good morning, everybody. My name is John Kerwin. I'm the Executive Director here at Pennington. I'm also the proud holder of the George A. Bray Jr. Endowed Super Chair, which is an endowed chair as part of the Board of Regents. And on behalf of the faculty and the staff, I'd like to welcome you back to our campus for your board meeting this morning. I know that I speak for all of our faculty, and I tell you that it's a privilege to work here. And I hope you enjoyed learning about Pennington Biomedical yesterday during the tour and the overview of the center. It's through research and outreach that we work each and every day for a healthier Louisiana. I'm proud to note that Pennington Biomedical is a statewide institution and that our work reaches into every parish in the state, across the country and around the world. We collaborate daily with the vast majority of your institutions, working to tackle some of the biggest problems and health concerns that are facing the state and beyond. Issues like obesity, diabetes, cancer, dementia. So it's our view that working together, it's an integral part of the work that we do. And we have much to be proud of in what we've accomplished, but we have a long way to go. And we need your support and help to get to that goal of bending the curve in the obesity epidemic that's really hampering not just the state, not just the families that you're part of, but it's hampering the U.S. economy and indeed the world economy. And so these are issues that need advanced education and educational initiatives. We need people to know how, what, and why we have these problems and how we can treat them. We can come up with treatments, but as educationists, we also have responsibility to educate the state and the country on the importance of these issues. Thank you for choosing Pennington Biomedical this morning as a home for your meeting. And I'd like to especially thank Chairman Chambert and Commissioner Reed for their continued support. I hope you enjoy your time here, and I wish you a successful day. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll call the audit committee meeting to order. We've had a roll call. We have some new members on the audit committee who have not served before, and in fact, the audit committee itself is a new structure, really less than a year old. The audit process includes both auditing of financials and auditing of compliance with procedures and rules and regulations. And our audit team is made up of the staff who are employed by the Board of Regents, and our staff auditor and the Assistant Commissioner for Audit and Compliance is Elizabeth Bourgeois, who's here. And we have contracted a portion of the audit work out, the internal audit, to Postal Way to Netterville. Postal Way to Netterville is completing its first year of a 3-year engagement, and to present the findings and to bring us up to date on the contract, let me introduce to you Laura Swallow, and she will introduce her colleagues.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm Laura Swallow. I'm a director at Postal Way Netterville, and with me is Kristen Burke, who is one of the managers on the engagement.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for your time today. As she said, I am Kristen Burke. I'm manager at PNN, and I have been involved in managing the internal audit services our firm has been providing for the board. I'd like to start by going through the items we'd like to cover today. We'd like to start with a status update on our items completed from our year 1 internal audit plan, including a summary of contract dollars used and what remains. And then we will present the results of our second and third internal audits we have performed, and we'll finish with a look into our risk assessment process and our plan for our contract year 2. The chart you're looking at here gives you a status of each audit that was included in our year 1 internal audit plan that was approved by the board in August of last year. As you can see, all audits have been completed and the reports have been issued for these. The results of the card audit, the P-card audit, were presented back in September of 2018 at that meeting, and the TOPS eligibility and renewals and financial aid special programs audits we will be covering today. This slide shows what we have built to our contract to complete year 1 activities and what remains for years 2 and 3. Our year 1 billings include not only the work performed on the audits we listed in the previous slide, but also our work on the internal audit risk assessment and the development of our internal audit plan.
A note to the committee, we will review probably next month or the month after whether the money remaining in the contract is adequate for the work remaining in the contract, or whether some adjustments may need to be considered. The first year's costs included some significant spin-up expenses that won't be replicated in second and third years. So Postal Way to Netterville is going to scope out the work to be done and give us a view of whether or not we've adequately covered the costs for that service.
Since we've last met, our team has issued 2 reports for audits of LOSVA's TOPS eligibility and renewals process and LOSVA's financial aid special programs processes. Because the processing for both of these programs, TOPS and special programs, occurs in the same award system at LOSVA, we were able to perform these audits concurrently. The objective of our audits was to assess the overall processes and the applicable internal controls related to both TOPS and special programs. We did this by obtaining documented policies and procedures. We interviewed a number of loss for personnel to gain an understanding of those processes and the applicable award system. We performed walkthroughs of both TOPS and special programs processes and the award systems used. And we assessed appropriateness of the access to these award systems and user rights and permissions in the system. And then we also looked at the LOSVA's internal, their audit processes over both TOPS and special programs. Through our audits, we noted a number of internal controls in these areas designed to mitigate risk, and these include automation of the eligibility determinations in the system, system limit controls, and other manual reviews and the audits that are performed. There were no high-risk observations noted in either of the audits. There were only 3 observations of moderate risk noted in the TOPS eligibility and renewals audits, and then only 3 total low-risk observations noted, 2 from the TOPS and 1 from special programs. You can see how the risk rankings were assigned from the chart below. Reports have been issued that describe all of our observations that we had noted in further detail, but this morning we just wanted to cover those that are of the higher risk, so those of that were ranked in that moderate risk ranking. 3 moderate risk observations were noted from the TOPS audit of TOPS eligibility and renewals, but all of these relate to award system access. We identified instances where access in the system wasn't limited based on job responsibilities. We had a meeting with management at the end of our audit, and we discussed with them what our observations were, and in response to those moderate observations, they provided to us a response and an action plan, and they noted that they will be making modifications to the user access and permissions in the system. And they will also be performing reviews of user access quarterly to check for appropriateness. And we found this action plan to be appropriate, and it should be noted that they also provided action plans to all of our noted observations for both audits, and we also found all of those action plans to be appropriate. If no one has any questions, I'll hand it over to Laura to go through our internal audit risk assessment process.
I'll just provide a brief overview of the risk assessment. As you're all aware, let's see, this slide would help. As you're aware, state statute requires that the Board of Regents establish an internal audit function which adheres to the Institute of Internal Auditors International Standards for the Professional Practice of Internal Audit. Those standards encompass many different elements, but one of the elements that's encompassed in those standards is that internal audit functions are required to establish a risk-based audit plan to determine the priorities of the internal audit activity. And in developing this risk-based audit plan, those risks should be consistent with the organization's goals. And so we do this by completing a risk assessment. That risk assessment should be completed at least on an annual basis, but it can change over the course of the year as risk within the organization change. And then we document that risk assessment. And part of the risk assessment is taking input from both members of senior management within the organization as well as members of the audit committee. And so, as you're all aware, in contract year 1, we were new to the Board of Regents. And so, to develop that risk assessment for year 1, we really looked at it from a comprehensive basis. We developed a comprehensive questionnaire that was distributed to members across the Board of Regents staff, LUMCOM staff, LOSTA staff, and we solicited input. We compiled all the input that we received, and we categorized each area for which we received risk rankings as either low, moderate, or high risk. And based on those risk rankings, we developed that internal audit plan, which was approved and included the 3 audits that Kristen just talked about for the year 1 plan. as we go into year 2, recognizing that we did a lot of work in year 1 and we're still not even a year out from some of that work we've done, our goal is not to go through that full comprehensive process that we went through last year, but really what we want to do is take, and I can put the slide up, we want to take the results from last year's risk assessment, brush them off. We're doing that by having conversations with people across Board of Regents to understand what changes have occurred over the last 6 to 9 months that would impact what was initially included in that audit plan. We focused a lot on taking a look at those high-risk areas, and then the conversations that we're having are really understanding systems changes, process changes, personnel changes, any of those key types of changes that would impact what we might want to look at in year 2. And we've also had some deeper dive discussions just to understand the risk a little bit more as we continue to get to know Board of Regents better. And so we're substantially complete with many of those interviews. And so our next steps is internally we're going to put our heads together and develop a recommended audit plan for year 2, which we plan to present at the March Audit Committee meeting. One of the things that's going to be included in that year 2 audit plan will include some sort of follow-up actions related to the observations that were identified in the year 1 audits that we completed. Are there any questions?
No questions?
No question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there other business to come before the audit committee? Let me just say, I'm pleased with the teamwork that has developed between the Board of Regents audit team and the Postal Way to Netterville contractors that are doing the internal audit work for us. I find the communication to be excellent, the collegiality to be encouraging, and the combined product to be something that should give us some comfort that our audit function is being well handled. If there's no other business to come before the committee, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Without objection, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Regent Seal. We'll now move on to the Academic and Student Affairs. Regent Nipple, would you please call your committee to order?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to call the Academic and Student Affairs Committee meeting to order. Dr. Denby, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Regent Temple,
Here?
Regent David.
Here.
Regent Adley. Here. Regent Kenny.
Here.
Regent Pryor. Regent Solomon.
Here.
Regent Wyatt. LCTCS representative. LSU representative. Southern University representative.
Here.
And University of Louisiana representative. We have a quorum.
Thank you. First item is item 3, the consent agenda. Dr. Denby, please present that item.
Yes, sir. Before the consent agenda, though, this is just a summary of the main programs that this committee deals with, which include approval and modification of existing degree programs, revising or eliminating existing degree programs, considering managing the curriculum inventory, facilitating articulation and transfer, and authorizing centers and institutes. You will see several of those topics in today's agenda. On the consent agenda, there are 2 major items. One is reauthorization of an existing center, the Center for Advanced Manufacturing and Technology at Delgado, and the routine staff reports. And if you have any questions on any of those, I'd be glad to answer them. Otherwise, senior staff recommend approval of the items on the consent agenda.
I move to put all of the items A and B on the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion second. Great. Okay. So, motion passes. Next item. No. Item 3. Item 4.
Good morning.
Moving so fast, man. Jumping through.
You pick, I'll do.
Right.
All right, so the academic programs portion of the agenda starts with 2 letters of intent. The first letter of intent is from LSU to develop a proposal for a Master of Science in Sport Management, which is currently a popular concentration in LSU's MS in kinesiology. Employers and students are increasingly looking for a standalone degree program in sport management, which prompted the proposed change. LSU currently offers the concentration both online and on campus. The online program's recent growth is expected to continue along with the standalone program. Current resources will sustain the on-campus degree, and the online program will continue to operate on self-generated funds. The full program proposal will further define the difference in concept and curriculum between the LSU's BS in Sport Administration and the proposed Masters in Sport Management.
The second letter of intent is to develop a proposal for a Doctor of Nursing practice at McNeese State University. The DNP, or Doctor of Nursing Practice, is a practice-focused doctoral program that builds on the core content areas and specialized areas of practice, providing advanced practice registered nurses with a doctoral level blend of clinical, organizational, and leadership skills. Just as the healthcare community promotes the Bachelor of Science in Nursing for undergraduate education, graduate nursing education is moving toward the DNP. McNeese asked to develop a DNP that specializes in psychiatric mental health. McNeese has a strong nursing program, particularly in psychiatric mental health, and staff recommend that the university develop a full program proposal that fully addresses the questions raised in the staff summary, in addition to the regular proposal items. And so with those two letters of intent, senior staff recommend approval of the letters of intent to develop full program proposals.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
What, on the Doctor of Nursing practice, and I'm very familiar with the need for it, will these people that receive these degrees, will they go into teaching and then administration? Is that the goal that they would be pursuing?
That is one of the goals that they will pursue. Another thing that they certainly go into teaching as faculty, but they also go into clinical practice, especially in places where there are not physicians available. They take care of a lot of the clinical needs of the state.
So they become nurse practitioners?
They are nurse practitioners already, but
All
they
right.
become doctor nurse practitioners.
Which is probably a good thing.
I think so.
Members, you've heard the motion. You've heard the recommendations. Do we have a motion to approve?
Kenny?
Kenny, all right. Second, great. Any questions or discussions? No, okay. Next item, motion passes. Next item, program proposals, Dr. Denby.
We have two program proposals to present to you today. The first is an Associate of Applied Science in Computer and Information Systems at Baton Rouge Community College. BRCC's proposed AAS in Computing and Information Systems was developed in collaboration with IBM, Dow Chemical, and the Department of Education, along with the LCTCS, as part of the SciTech Academy, which is an IBM Pathways in Technology Early College High School at Terra High School right now. The program focuses on computer science fundamentals and application development skills at this time. The 60-credit degree is designed around a 6-course computer science core and 8 programming courses that range from database design to mobile application development and web programming. The second proposal is for a Master of Science in Child and Family Studies at LSU. When LSU School of Human Ecology was split up in 2013, the undergraduate Child and Family Studies program was moved to the School of Social Work, while the graduate programs previously offered under the Master of Science and PhD in Human Ecology were terminated in 2016. The Child and Family Studies program has thrived in its new location with 68 graduates last year, up from 33 in 2013 when they were first moved. And the faculty have developed the proposed Master of Science in Child and Family Studies to expand the research and to provide opportunities for graduate study. CFS is a social science program that seeks to improve the lives of family units through work with children and families wherever they are found. So in communities, in schools, in hospitals, and social service agencies. The proposed 36 credit program received a positive review from Dr. Elizabeth Gershoff from UT Austin and is ready for implementation if you approve it. Senior staff do recommend conditional approval of the 2 proposed degree programs with progress reports due in July 2021.
Great, okay. So, members, we've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve conditional approval? Moved? Second, great, okay. Any questions or discussions? That motion passes. Item 4, proposed undergraduate certificate, Dr. Demby.
Yes, sir. The proposed upper level undergraduate certificate was developed to address several needs. To provide an avenue toward a credential for the many students who stop out of the university in their junior and senior years to go to work. To respond to the needs of business and industry for quick, targeted training that goes beyond the associate degree level, and to give returning adults a credentialed path for additional undergraduate training in a specific field or major content area. The undergraduate certificate would require a minimum of 18 credit hours, of which at least 1/2 must be at the junior and senior or upper level. The idea has been well received among universities and colleges alike as a way to recognize what students have accomplished and to offer opportunities that industry has requested. We do have a couple of individuals from LED and IBM who have asked to speak in support of the proposed certificate, but first, senior staff does recommend approval of the proposed undergraduate certificate to be added to the policy as a certificate option.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Basically, this is between an associate's degree and a 4-year degree.
Basically, that is how most of them would happen, yes, sir.
Okay.
It does not require that a student have an associate degree before they pursue a certificate, but that's where it would land because it has the upper level work in it.
Okay. And, I mean, do we know of any other states or institutions that are using that at any level, or, you know?
Yes, sir. In the staff write-up, there was, attachment 2 was a table of links that go to other states that have certificate programs. They're very interesting, and they go and they just cover a wide range of content.
Okay. All right, so members, you've heard the recommendations for this item. Is there a motion to approve?
You want to hear from the
Is she-
presenters first?
Okay.
I'm glad that you're also very receptive to this, but I would like to say just a couple of words. I'm Susie Showen. Oops. My apologies. I'm Susie Showen. I'm the Director of Workforce Initiatives with LED Fast Start, which is the Workforce Development Division of LED, for those of you who aren't familiar with it. And I do think that this particular solution that's being offered today is really exciting, at least partly because I think it came up in exactly the right way, in the way that we really want our colleges and universities offering solutions to business and industry. One of the things that I do with LED is I help to facilitate our higher education partnerships that we do in conjunction with a number of economic development projects, starting with IBM and now including DXC Technologies, what is now GDIT in Bossier City, CGI in Lafayette, and any number of other companies along those lines. And what we hear over and over again from the technology companies that we work with and people hiring technology people in other industries, I think it's worth noting that essentially every industry now is a technology industry and is hiring technology people, is that computer science majors and similar majors are very much in demand, but that they're not necessarily the only population that could be made really attractive for hiring in these fields. And there's a great deal of interest from our industry partners, and for example, arts and humanities majors who come to the table with some really extraordinary interpersonal skills and other types of skills that are highly valued in the workplace, but they need a technology foundation as well. We need those technology skills sort of infused across the curriculum. And these certificates are an excellent way to do that. So they can offer students an opportunity to graduate with a bachelor's degree in a field that is not a technology field, but also have a very thorough, very deep grounding in the types of technology skills that will make them highly competitive in the market. It also offers opportunities for our colleges and universities to introduce new and emerging topics in these fields without the need to completely revamp their computer science curriculums and so on. So it allows them to put some very new technologies into the curriculum in a way that students could study right before they graduate with a bachelor's degree so that they can get this new information. And it offers all the opportunities for students who might otherwise stop out. It offers opportunities for adults returning to college and all sorts of things to make sure that their skills are highly applicable to the current job market and the needs of the future. But I am not the one who's the expert on this. Like I said, we've been hearing this from our industry experts. What then happened through these partnerships as we were working on these ideas is the educators and the faculty came up with these ideas on how they could address these needs. And then the administrators said, that would be great, but we can't do it, but we need this new thing. The Board of Regents staff has been extraordinarily helpful and very fast moving on this particular project and really came up with the solution that I think is kind of amazing and will really help take things forward in an important way. But I do want to let you hear from Beth O'Quinn.
Can I ask you a question?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Do you anticipate that this program will be offered in both universities and in community colleges?
This is intended to be a designation offered by the four-year colleges and universities. So it is distinct in topic and in level from the certificates that are already offered by the two-year colleges. So the idea is that this would not be competitive with, but complementary to what the LCTCS colleges are doing right now.
Well, are you telling me that this is already available at two-year colleges?
Certificate programs are available at two-year colleges, but these would be a different type of thing because it requires the upper level work. So it's something that really can only be offered by the four-year colleges and universities.
Have to take 18 hours of junior or senior level, or 9 hours?
It's 9 hours at the upper level, that's my understanding.
Randy, it sounds like it's,
And do you have gen ed 60 hours assumed to be in here?
Not in the certificate. That's the interesting part of it. A certificate, as Susie mentioned, can be an add-on to, say, a liberal arts major who adds on perhaps lower level courses in computer science and upper level courses in information security. So they, it's not a degree, it's a certificate in a focused area.
and looking at your notes, it sounds like it's kind of like a minor, but it's something you can actually say, I achieved something as opposed to just getting a minor.
It can be like a minor, and it can be far more than 18 hours. If you look at some of the links that are attached to the write-up that are already being offered around the country, 18 seems to be the standard minimum number for undergraduate certificates, but they can go up to 30 hours. It depends on what the field is and what's necessary. Yes, sir.
GNO Inc. is an economic development organization in New Orleans, and it has been collecting some information on the explosion in tech sector population in New Orleans, caused mostly by millennials moving there from other places. And for example, in a number of different ratings, New Orleans has been in the top 10 in the nation for the number of people in that industry moving in and establishing working relationships. And in fact, New Orleans tech sector has now outstripped places like Austin and San Francisco as the most desired place that young people want to be in the tech sector. So with this influx of people coming to Louisiana, I wonder if we are deploying all the resources we can to provide the training and certification for them.
I think this will help us to do that, but know that the undergraduate certificate does not have to be in a technical field. It could be in any field. That makes sense.
Let me add that to Regent Ewing's question, the nimbleness of the two-year institutions is important, right? So they offer certificates, industry-based certifications. We want to marry that with the opportunity for individuals in the four-year institutions to do sub-baccalaureate and post-baccalaureate, so that when an IBM or a DXC or someone comes and says, we need this plus, there is a mechanism by which the four-year institutions can respond. So that is what we are trying to make sure we're able to do here, because the market is moving quickly. We heard conversations about 2030 and beyond, and Regent Ewing is always asking me about, is it relevant? Is it market relevant? How do we know? So these are the kinds of new opportunities, new inventory, if you will, on the post-secondary side that is very important, and it is what is happening across the country in the post-baccalaureate and sub-baccalaureate conversation.
Commissioner, are there schools that are lined up to utilize this right away?
Yes, there are schools that are lined up.
Yeah, this idea really came out of the schools that are working with the industry partners that we've been facilitating. UNO, Grambling, and LSU are all poised to do this really very quickly and are very anxious to get started on it, because this does meet the needs of the industry partners that they've been working with. I'm sure many of the others are ready to go as well.
So
Yeah.
industry is ready to recognize these certifications that are.
Let's hear from IBM.
Let me introduce you to Beth O'Quinn.
Hi there, my name is Beth O'Quinn. I'm the talent manager at the Baton Rouge Client Innovation Center, the IBM office here in Baton Rouge. And yes, we are constantly looking to hire qualified resources. We have to train them approximately about 3 months once they get on the job to the newer skills and technology. They have a foundation, but we see this as a way to potentially shorten that. I think the other point is that we
Hiring them earlier than waiting for that 4-year degree?
all of the above. We're looking for all qualified people. We want there's some roles that require 4 years. There's some that we can hire with 2-year AAS, which you just passed a few minutes ago. Thank you for that. The other point I wanted to make is just from a diversity standpoint, IBM is very committed to diversity, and we think that this also will help us hire a diverse workforce in Louisiana. So.
Can I ask the commissioner one last question? This is a trend nationally, these stackable credentials, right? And so we want to do stackables starting with technical degrees or industry certification, associate degrees, associates plus this for the undergraduates in the 4-year programs. And then after that, we have stackable graduate certificates, do we not, for 1 year post-grad? Is this the national trend just to try to recognize and certify competency at each one of those levels because of the request for some assurance by businesses and industry that they know what they're getting and the competency certification?
So, yes, plus. It is a trend that we are trying to make sure that the relationship and the conversation, the feedback loop is as tight as possible between what we are offering and what industry is looking for. And we want to make sure that the institutions, and what we're hearing from the institutions is, we don't have a mechanism by which to do sub and post-baccalaureate work. So if you get a minor in something, you normally get a major in that, or it's within a similar discipline. So if you look at what's happening across the country in terms of interdisciplinary work, you're seeing engineers and artists working together, scientists and musicians working together. So this is an opportunity to move that conversation forward, to say, what is the skill set that will be necessary, and how do we make sure that we are offering a menu of options that allows us to have our students as relevant, have their skills as relevant as possible. Listening closely to industry to say, you're not there yet, you're not getting it right. So for me, the benefit of this is not only in the opportunity for our students, but to say to industry in Louisiana and who's looking at Louisiana, we're listening and we're responding. And we intend to listen and respond.
Is the curriculum in place to carry this program forward?
So, Karen, is the curriculum in place?
The curriculum will be developed by the campuses, just like for a degree. So you will see what sort of proposals come from the campuses to offer these certificates. They haven't presented any because it doesn't exist yet.
So the policy is an enabling policy for them to bring their programs forward.
And it will fill out the options that we have for curriculum development so that we have the associate degree, and then we would have the undergraduate certificate, the bachelor's degree. We have a post-baccalaureate certificate that right now is primarily used in teacher education for adding on certification. We have a graduate certificate that leads into the master's degree or can be just a separate component.
I suppose there'll be several different criteria to address the different needs of the different areas that are sponsoring these programs. And has any work been done on that yet, or is that to come forward?
We've been hearing from people that are trying to sponsor these kind of programs, but we have not received the curriculum request yet.
I think it's a good move. I just wanted to.
They will answer the same kinds of questions that they answer for a post-baccalaureate or a graduate certificate. What is the program design? What's the need? What's the student demand? What's the cost? That sort of thing.
Is there a motion on the table, or is it not?
Not yet. I moved to adopt.
All right, second?
Second.
Second. Okay, so any question or further discussion? Okay,
excited.
so, great. Well, let's move on to item 6, motion passes.
Thank
Let's
you
move on.
all.
Let's move, thank you all, appreciate it. So let's move on to item 6, academic centers and institutes. Please present.
All right, the first item under Academic Centers and Institutes is the LSU Center for Collaborative Knowledge. The center was granted conditional one-year approval by the Regents in January 2018, and full authorization was approved by the LSU Board of Supervisors this past November. The Center for Collaborative Knowledge aims to facilitate creativity and collaboration across disciplines through courses, lecture series, conferences, and projects that foster interdisciplinary research. The Center's advisory council consists of deans and faculty from a wide range of disciplines across the campus, including business, coastal studies, political science, engineering, and several others. The number and variety of topics covered at the Center's well-attended events over its first year clearly demonstrate campus interest and engagement in the Center's mission. While the Center has secured some institutional and philanthropic resources, it does not yet have long-term stable funding in place. Full authorization for 3 years, while it builds financial stability, will allow the Center to move forward with activities and report back to the board with an update in 3 years.
So senior staff recommends that, that the committee grant full approval to the Center for Collaborative Knowledge.
You guys want to add something?
I read the notes, but so what exactly does it do? I mean, it sounds like it's hard to kind of figure out.
Agreed,
Yeah.
by the name. So what's interesting is they hold symposia, conferences, lectures. They're working on various student projects, incentives for student-faculty collaboration. They're working on setting up a grant program for faculty to encourage interdisciplinary research. So the way they're operating is they sort of settle on 3 major projects for a number of years and do a lot of activities in those areas. So the first 3 projects for the first 5 years are in sustainable cities, materials and art through history, and the Aristotelian inventory. So it is a wide variety. I know, I didn't know how to say that before.
Right.
So I guess from a policy perspective, if it's not a degree, and if, where is our role in the, obviously they have to get our approval for this 3 years, and I don't have any problem with it, but why would they need our approval for this center that doesn't even have any degree program? Is that just part of how our governing structure works?
We have policies that require Board of Regents approval for academic and research centers and institutes.
Okay.
Right.
It's to be designated as a center, it has to.
Gotcha.
For our approval.
That makes
Correct.
So they get to use the name center or institute.
Because it seems like they could take the word center off and they wouldn't need it at all.
And we hope that's what they're doing anyway, right?
Yeah.
The Board of Regents designation can sometimes help with funding
Right.
opportunities. The approval process and the check mark helps.
All right, thank you.
Okay, all right, so you've heard the recommendation.
I would move to approve the 3 years.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Regent Kenny, okay, all right, so any questions or discussion? Motion passes. Next, the proposed Center for Research Excellence. Ms. Denby, Dr. Denby.
Yes, sir. This is our last item on the agenda. Proposed Center of Research Excellence presented by or submitted by the Center for Cardiovascular Disease and Sciences at the LSU Health Science Center in Shreveport. The Center for Cardiovascular Diseases and Sciences in Shreveport was approved by the board as a center in 2013 and has requested reauthorization and recognition as a Center of Research Excellence. A Center of Research Excellence is structured around a highly specialized research effort, usually of a transdisciplinary nature, that demonstrates excellence in developing new knowledge, enhancing the research productivity of the faculty, integrating education and research, and attracting external resources and support. In the last 5 years, the Center of Cardiovascular Diseases and Sciences has distinguished itself through its exceptional level of research productivity and its ability to secure external funding to further its work and outreach. As just one example, outside of the direct research area, 1/3 of the total PhDs produced by the Health Science Center in Shreveport since 2012 have been trained by this center. And they graduated faster, published more, and received more extramural fellowships than their peers. But the write-up shows how much external funding they have attracted and how much work has been done in cardiovascular diseases, and what an interdisciplinary type function the center is. So senior staff recommend approval of the designation of the Center for Cardiovascular Diseases and Sciences at the LSU Health Science Center as a Center of Research Excellence.
Members, you've heard the recommendations of the staff. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All right. Any questions, discussions, opposition? Motion passes. Any other business to come before this committee? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Great, second. Any discussion? We are adjourned.
Thank you, Regent Temple. Boy, you're getting good at this, too.
I did. That's my guy.
We'll now move on to our next committee meeting, Facilities and Property. Regent Meyer, will you please call your committee to order?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We call the Facilities and Property Committee to order.
Yes, sir. Chair Meyer,
Here.
Vice Chair Temple,
Here.
Regent David,
Here.
Regent Ewing,
Here.
Regent Kenny,
Here.
Regent Weil,
Here.
UL Representative,
Present.
LCTCS Representative, Southern Representative,
Here.
LSU Representative. We have a quorum.
Mr. Herring, can you please go over the consent agenda?
Yes, sir. The first slide contains the items that come before the Facilities and Property Committee. I'll highlight the small capital projects, the third-party projects, and the annual capital outlay submission. The small capital projects are fairly common. They involve staff approval, and these projects are reported back to the board at a subsequent meeting. institutions are allowed to undertake projects with a construction cost up to $1 million. And it's approved at a staff level, which expedites these projects. Our second item today will be a third-party type project. These normally involve a 501c3 or some other type of entity that an institution will use to build normally housing or parking garage or athletic type facilities. And then the committee is responsible for approval of the annual capital outlay budget recommendation, which will be coming your way during the October meeting. The consent agenda contains small capital projects that were approved since our last committee meeting. There are 5 this month that have been approved, and if there are no questions, senior staff recommends approval.
Can I get a motion to approve the consent
So moved.
agenda? We have a motion by Regent Wild, a second by Regent Ewing to approve the consent agenda. Any questions on readiness? All in favor say aye. Any opposition? Ayes have it. We'll move on to agenda item number 4.
Yes, sir. Agenda item 4 is new student housing on the ULM campus. They're working with the Provident Resource Group, who is a nonprofit 501c3. That entity created Provident Group ULM, which is an LLC, and they will be responsible for securing financing and constructing the new student housing on the UL campus. The project's going to consist of approximately a 372-bed facility and associated parking. There'll be 1, 2, and 4 bedroom units in the facility. Provident ULM will own the facility over the term of the lease, which will be around 40 years or until the debt service is satisfied. At that point, the facility will revert back to ULM. The project will not exceed $34 million, and the debt service will be satisfied from revenues generated by Provident ULM from operating the facility, which is essentially student housing payments. Through a cooperative endeavor agreement, ULM will collect the housing money and then transfer it to Provident ULM, who in turn will satisfy the debt with that money. It's important to note ULM nor the system will incur any debt as a result of this project. And if there are no questions on that, senior staff recommends approval.
Can I get a motion to approve the ULM housing?
Question?
You have a motion and second? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the ULM. We have a question? Sorry.
Yes, I'm not on committee.
Okay, well, let me get the motion on the floor. And we have a motion to approve the ULM student housing, the motion and a second. Any questions on readiness? I'll turn it over to Regent Adler.
Okay. I've now seen 2 of these projects on 2 campuses that were done years ago that are sitting empty because the projects, the housing wasn't updated and updated over the course of years and years and years. And so at 2 of our universities, we have these huge facilities that aren't being used, and now we have lawsuits. So are they now asking for over a 40-year period as they contract with these people that they have to continue upgrading over the years?
Yes, excuse me, Provident's responsible for all operations, maintenance, repairs over the term of the lease, or the 40-year period.
I guess that answers my question.
Well, who enforces the construction standards? Because I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Who did the other 2? Is Provident new to this, or?
They did LSU's, which just opened in the fall, so.
The 2 that we had toured were done by some overseas company, one at LSUS and one at Grambling.
I think that's significant.
Angling,
Something like that. I just, like there was not enough, there was no cyber, they couldn't get networks because there's no cyber in the buildings. And as we go forward 40 years, those same kind of things are going to occur that we don't even know about yet. So that's all I was asking about.
And I guess it's just something we can monitor going forward, and if there are things that we need to do to tighten up from a policy perspective.
It's not going to be in the contract?
In terms of,
The
I mean, they
updates-
are responsible
The
for.
updates and the upgrades
Yes.
are in the contract.
Yes.
But it might be good for us, Chris, for us to find out what are the specifics, if you may already know, what are the specifics of the previous housing deficits? And let's make sure that we are addressing those currently and moving forward within the contracts.
Well,
So
should
we're
we-
sort of learning as we go.
Well, should we delay this until the next meeting, until we find that out?
So
We
this
have
is
some
just the
people from
bond.
ULM here too that might want to speak on it.
Well, I would say if we delay, the plan is for them to start construction immediately with the facility opening in the fall of '20, which coincides with the opening of the medical school on our campus. So there is a need to move forward on this.
But can you speak to her questions about, can you speak to the questions about what's in the contract in terms of,
Matt, I'm gonna ask
Yep.
the attorney
that's
to
good.
step in on that.
Well, these are occurring all over the place.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
And have,
Yeah.
yeah.
Matt Kern with Jones Walker, we're bond counsel on the transaction. There's nothing that specifically addresses upgrades to the facility, but they are incentivized to make sure that there are students there. So they would set money aside theoretically through operating expense budgets and things like that to make sure that there are upgrades to the facility to incentivize students to live there.
Who would set the money aside?
The manager. There's a manager of the project that will contract with Provident.
We'd like to see that tightened up a little bit.
Any questions? So let's make sure, I want to make sure we're capturing the challenges that we have had and that we're speaking to that moving forward. So Chris, let's make sure we're doing that on our campuses, because I think Regent Adley is correct. We are seeing more and more of these third-party financing opportunities. Not a bad thing, but certainly want to make sure that we're learning as we go and infusing that learning into the process moving forward.
I agree with you, Commissioner Reed. I mean, this is current and the future of all developments on college campuses, third-party projects. So it's important that we fine-tune the specifics, as it relates to higher education. But at the same point, the financing for this helps universities overall.
Yes.
So,
It sure does. I mean, that part's good. We're just talking about quality. And we reviewed the contract between Providence and,
I have a copy of the cooperative endeavor agreement between the university and Providence and the ground lease.
But the approvals are with the management boards for those details, correct?
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah. So they have the day-to-day responsibilities there.
are there any other questions, Mr. Herring? We have a motion, second on the floor. All in favor, say aye. Any opposition? Ayes have it. The motion is passed. Is there any other business to come before the Facilities and Property Committee?
No, sir.
I've had some experience with this type of contracting in my capacity as an attorney representing Southeastern over a number of years, over a number of these kinds of projects. I think they're good and essential. But I do like the idea that the Board of Regents would establish a criteria that all of them have to meet going forward. Those that are in the pipeline maybe not, but those that are commenced, maybe we should have a discrete set of standards that involve upgrading and maintaining the capability of internet service and those things that would make students want to occupy them. And left to their own devices, the 501c3s don't have the knowledge to implement those requirements, and the contractors and architects and developers don't have the incentive.
Right.
So
Do
maybe
you
it
have
is,
some
maybe there is a
language?
role for that.
Regent Seal, do you have some language in the contracts that you've put in that we could maybe look at and,
Nope, I missed it too.
yeah?
So I think it's worth. I think it's worth.
I can
looking at.
get copies of the various contracts, and I will say, Regent Adley, that LSU Shreveport, that was one of the first ones
Yeah.
done like this. So the possibility of mistakes being made at the time were more prevalent.
We, Regent Ewing, we also toured at Grambling, and there's a whole housing project there that's just,
There's a building about as big as this one sitting over there, and somebody fell through the second floor to the first floor.
Right. There's definitely issues with that one.
Regent McDonald, and then Regent Ivey.
We have long been entering into these contracts with the private area, and all the construction I'm familiar with on the ULM campus has been from the private sector. We have not spent any state dollars in years and years on building anything on the ULM campus. Our campus is beautiful now with new buildings, new constructions, new dormitories, as I used to call them in the old days, housing, and they are run by, managed by, in the private sector. They collect the dollars, they collect for maintenance, upgrades, they set that aside. The Facilities Corporation on our campus has provided leadership in millions and millions of dollars. And many of you visited our campus, some of the board members, to see how beautiful it is now, and it would have not been there without private dollars. I'm familiar with this project. I believe it's what, Chris, 372 rooms or something?
372 beds.
Beds. And it's upscale. It's right on the corner of the campus. It will add beauty and it will add availability of housing as we bring in over 600 and more students in the medical school, and they're going to be looking for housing, and it will be right on campus. And we've been able to do this through private funds, private contracting. We have attorneys in place, everything that you would want in a business approach to doing something is taking place. So I assure you, for any of those that have any reservations about this, that we want you to come when it's completed, see it, and it will be that beautiful 15, 20 years down the road, because maintenance funds are set aside. Am I right, Chris?
Well, no, it's,
I disagree with what you're saying. We were just talking about going forward over 40 years.
Yeah.
Is
But
it maintained
even-
and taken care of, and what's in the contract that secures
Right.
that?
In general.
We all understand the value
Yeah.
of private enterprise supporting the infrastructure on a
Yeah,
campus.
and Randy, and I agree with that. I agree that whether it be past or the future, that we need, as a board, as we approve these projects, that there should be some guidelines that
That's all we're talking
ensure
about.
that we don't do what the state has done on our campus, build buildings and never put any maintenance money in
Correct.
to take care of them, so our state buildings are falling down on most campuses.
Thank you, Regent McDonald. Regent David.
Completely unrelated, that's okay. About a year ago, we signed the death knell for Kirby Smith, towering albatross at LSU. I lived there about 24 years ago. When is that coming down? Do you know?
I think by the end of the year.
Okay.
They had to get the first phase done, which opened in the fall, and Kirby Smith is one of the upfront items on the second phase, so hopefully by the end
Will
of
be
the year.
like a grandstand and the Board of Regents session.
Tell you how old I am, I was the first, I was one of the first
All right,
to ever sleep Kirby Smith, and we had to wait for it to be finished for me to move in.
Oh, wow. I was on the top floor, those elevators
That's
worked
how
about
old
half
I
the
am.
We
time.
gotta move
yeah,
on.
we're running a little bit behind, and we
Yeah.
got the meeting with the governor 11:30, so.
Before we close the meeting, I would just like to ask staff to sort of codify the remarks of Regent Adley, Regent Ewing, and Regent Seal, and so for future projects, we can have that type of language in all the contracts. Okay?
Let me just add one thing quickly. I think a due diligence on the nonprofit we're dealing with would be an important part of this process and their history.
Again, as I stated before, most developments on university campuses, if there's housing, garages, and some retail will be done on this type of finance.
Correct.
So it's important that we codify this information for the future. Should I get a motion to adjourn? Second. Motion second. Meeting is adjourned.
All right, thank you, Regent Meyer, great job. Next, we move on to sponsored programs. Regent Temple, would you please call your committee to order?
Thank you, Regent Chair. I'd like to call Sponsored Programs Committee to order. Ms. Robeson, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Chair Perez, Vice Chair Temple,
Here.
Regent David,
Here.
Regent Kenny, Regent McDonald, Regent Meyer,
Here.
Regent Seal,
Here.
Regent Wild.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Our first agenda item is Board of Regents Support Fund Matching for statewide federal initiative.
Yes, sir, and first, just very, very briefly, before you have the 4 items that sponsored programs generally will bring before this committee, and I would note that all of these items, from the administration of the support fund to the consideration of policy issues related to research and development and tech transfer, are in play in today's items. So you have one nice all-in-one agenda item. This is the only item on our agenda. It is a request for support fund matching for the Louisiana Biomedical Research Network. I would first like to introduce Dr. Gus Kasoulas, who is here from LSU. He's the Associate Vice President for Research and Economic Development at LSU, as well as the Principal Investigator Project Director for the LBRN proposal that will be going forward. I will just give you the broad outline of the project and then let Dr. Kasoulas say a couple of words and answer any questions. The LBRN is a project that's been funded for many years now. This is the 4th phase that they're requesting funds for now. It's funded through the National Institutes of Health through their Institutional Development Program or IDEA program. They have been matched by the support fund for 2 of the 3 phases that have gone forward so far at a level of $1.148 million for the 5-year projects. That is a very good leverage rate. We usually leverage about 5 to 1 on this, so that is a very good investment for the state. LSU A&M has always led this project, but participating campuses, this is truly statewide in scope. There are 27 campuses that participate, including the one that you're sitting on right now. The purpose is to support statewide infrastructure and intellectual research network for interdisciplinary biomedical research. This has the advantage of being a project that is both research and educational in its prospect. It reaches out to train future employees in biomedical research areas as well as conduct high-level research. The goals for Phase 4, which is the project currently under consideration, for which the proposal is due in March, maintain and expand infrastructure in the research network, expand and improve the critical mass of biomedical investigators, and increase student interest in biomedical research. And finally, I just want to put up the map to show you this is a project with truly statewide reach. It reaches all corners of the state and institutions at every level. And with that, I will give it to Dr. Kasoulas to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Carrie. On behalf of the hundreds of faculty that the Louisiana Biomedical Research Network involves and the thousands of students throughout the state that have benefited from this program, first of all, I want to thank the Commissioner and the Deputy Commissioner Reuter for their support for the previous years, and also thank the Board for the previous support for this very important program. Biomedical research in the state of Louisiana is extremely strong. We're very happy to facilitate this. Your support enables students, specifically undergraduate students, to move around the state into mentored labs to create opportunities for them. We have huge successes, people that came from very small universities like Grambling State University that ultimately became physicians and others through the LBRN program. This is the 17th year of the program. We are actually cited by NIH as one of the top 2 programs among the 24 programs in 24 states. So thank you for your support.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, the senior staff recommends approval of a commission of a cash match from previously unspent monies in the support fund for the Louisiana Biomedical Research Network. As is typical with this kind of action, the match would not be provided unless the NIH funding is secured.
Okay, so members, you've heard the motion. Is there a motion, to approve? All right, second? Second. Okay, any discussion, opposition?
Carlos, can I just give a short
Yes,
brag?
ma'am, go ahead.
I want to just give a short brag to reiterate. I had an opportunity with these 2 individuals, to meet with the NIH representative at LSU, and I asked, how are we doing in Louisiana? And they were on and on about what amazing work we're doing, how broad our reach is across institutions. And so I just wanted to say to both of you, thank you for your leadership, because this makes a real difference. And so I really appreciate that very much.
Great, motion passes. Is there any other business coming before this committee?
No, sir.
Hearing none. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Second. Great, any discussion? We're adjourned.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Regent Temple. Next, we will move on to the Committee of Planning, Research, and Performance. Regent Adley, would you please call your committee to order?
Thank you. I'd like to call the Planning, Research, and Performance Committee to order. Could we get the roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Regent Adley,
Here.
Regent Perez, Regent David,
Here.
Regent Ewing,
Here.
Regent Levy,
Here.
Regent McDonald,
Here.
Regent Pryor,
Here.
Regent Tennyson.
Here.
Thank you. We'll now move to item number 3, our consent agenda items. Could you present them, please, Dr. Denver?
Yes, ma'am. First, we have a list of the main activities of this committee, and today, all of our items will be on the institutional licensure, which will be presented by Leanne Detillier.
Thank you, Karen. The first item for consideration by the committee today is our consent agenda, which includes license renewals for 4 academic degree granting institutions, as well as SARA institutional membership renewals for 6 of our institutions. Senior staff therefore recommends that the Planning, Research, and Performance Committee approve the items on the consent agenda.
Do we have any questions?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any opposition? Good, we're passing. Can we, now let's move on.
Thank you. The next item on today's agenda is final approval to the revisions to the licensure rules and regulations. You may remember that staff completed a comprehensive review of the rules and regulations with some revisions that were approved by this board in August. They were approved as proposed revisions to the rules for licensure. Once again, these were minor revisions that mainly involved clarification to existing language and the removal of language that was no longer applicable because we were following procedure by Bessie. You can see some of the more substantial revisions that were made were, like I stated, clarifying the language regarding the payment schedule for institutions who were submitting license renewals, eliminated the language that was no longer applicable due to DOE or Bessie policy, and we added language to include the delivery method of instruction for online delivery. When this board approved those revisions in September, in August, staff worked on completion of the next steps in the process, which is very prescribed according to the APA process. The next several steps involved submitting the required documents to the legislature and to the Legislative Fiscal Office for approval, which we did receive. A lot of the other items on this timeline were not applicable to us because they would only have been in effect if we had received public comment or a request for a public hearing, which we did not, and we didn't anticipate there would be any. So that brings us today, and the final step in this process is to request final approval of those revisions to the rules and regulations from this board. And I want to make a note that there were no changes to the proposed revisions that were approved by this board in August that you're looking at today. So there were no changes to which you've already approved. But this is the final step in the process. If this board approves today, we will submit for the final rule for publication in the Louisiana Register.
Do I hear a motion to approve the revisions to the licensure rules and regulations?
I move.
Second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? The motion passes. The next item is licensure of World Quaint University.
Thank you. The next 2 items, in fact, are in reference to conditionally licensed institutions. Just as a reminder, as stated in our licensure rules and regulations, new startup institutions domiciled in Louisiana must be in the process of seeking accreditation at the time that they apply for licensure. If approved by our board, they are granted conditional licensure while they work on achieving accreditation with a U.S. Department of Education recognized agency. World Quaint University was seeking accreditation with us, initially submitted their license in 2015, and were conditionally approved. They indicated at that time that they would be seeking accreditation with the Distance Education Accrediting Commission, or DEAC is how we refer to them. DEAC has been accepted as a US DOE approved accreditor for measuring quality with regard to distance education for many, many years. When they were granted initial licensure, WorldQuant was required to submit updates to us as they moved toward the process of pursuing accreditation, which they did in 2016 and 2017. And you may remember a few months ago in September, we brought to you an update from them where they were requesting a few additional months to prepare their final application to DEEC. They weren't quite ready yet. They had gotten some feedback from a consultant that they'd hired. So this board did approve that extension in September with the stipulation that DEEC would submit their application, WorldQuant would submit their application to DEEC by January. I'm happy to report to you that WorldQuant did in fact submit their application to DEEC on January 15th, and DEEC has confirmed that they have accepted the application, which means they are now eligible to move on in the accreditation process. Therefore, senior staff is recommending that the Planning, Research, and Performance Committee approve the application for license renewal for WorldQuant for an additional 2 years, and as with any conditional approval, the institution will be subject to stipulations which will pretty much be submitting annual requirements or updates to us about their progress in achieving accreditation, and then at the expiration of this 2-year license, they should be able to report to us their status with DEEC, which will hopefully be that they are now accredited.
Do I hear a motion to approve the recommendation of senior staff? Do we hear a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Very good. Is there any opposition? Motion passes, and now we'll move on to licensure for International Health Coach University.
This institution is in a somewhat similar situation to WorldQuant University. International Health Coach is another conditionally licensed institution offering one master's level degree program. The institution was initially approved in March of 2016. They too are seeking accreditation with DEEC, the Distance Education Accrediting Commission. As required, International Health Coach submitted updates in 2017 and 2018, and they were preparing to submit their application to DEEC in March of 2019. And we were notified in mid-September that they were pursuing a change of ownership. And that change of ownership was finalized on September 30th, 2018. Unfortunately, undergoing this process will delay their submission of their application to DEEC, since DEEC's standards require that an institution seeking initial accreditation be under their current ownership for a minimum of 2 consecutive years. Following conversations between Regents staff and DEEC's Director of Accreditation, International Health Coach cannot submit their application to DEEC until September 30th, 2020. Because of this transaction that occurred 2 years after they're now within this same owner. If approved for this 2-year extension of their conditional license, the institution will be required to continue their work toward accreditation through attending DEEC conferences and DEEC meetings, submitting updates to us as staff, and completing their self-evaluation report and preparing for their readiness assessment and on-site visit, which would follow their submission of their application to DEEC. So senior staff recommends that the Planning, Research, and Performance Committee approve the application for license renewal for International Health Coach University until December of 2020 with the following stipulations. And just like with other institutions, they'll have to yearly provide us with updates on where they are in their progress toward achieving accreditation. By the expiration date of the license, they should be able to submit evidence to us that they have submitted their application to DEEC and their readiness assessment fee. And if at that point in time they've done those 2 things, then you will then decide if we should then allow them to extend their license for whatever time is deemed necessary at that point. We usually we consult with DEEC and see where the institution stands and how much more time they would need. And then if approved, we would allow them time to achieve final accreditation.
Let's get a motion and a second, and then we'll have discussion. So do we have a motion to accept? Do we have a second?
Second.
And discussion? I know we have a question, Regent.
And I'm not on this.
No problem. We invite your questions.
Okay, so while they have to wait, do they just not have accreditation?
Correct.
How many students they have?
Not many, less than 100.
And is it by virtue of just their changing ownership that they had this delay or DEEC, or did they just not do it?
The clock basically starts over for them, yes.
Okay.
So it would have been better for them to have waited until after they got this taken care of to do that, or they probably just didn't.
I'm
think
not
of it.
really sure what reasons led to their, decision to go through with the transaction of changing their owner, but it happens, and those are the same questions that I had for Deke, and I've been in constant contact with the Director of Accreditation since we have so many of these institutions that are utilizing that accreditation body, and she said it's perfectly normal. It happens many times in the process, especially in these early stages.
That's my question. We have to defer to you guys. Y'all are the experts in this field, but does this one give you pause, or it's a pretty easy call?
And you defer to us and we defer to them. And that's pretty much what this, like I said, that's the same questions I had. And she said it's very typical for an institution at this early phase in the process to come across these kinds of situations, a change in their leadership within their institution, their CEO, or a change in owner, different things that could affect what they're doing. And the Deke handbook is very specific, and if a change of ownership occurs, then they have to wait 2 more years before they can even consider submitting their application.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Where are these schools located?
They have administrative offices in New Orleans, both of them.
World Quant University?
Yes.
What is their specialty?
They have one degree. It's a Master of Science in Financial Engineering.
And this, the International Health Coach, what is that?
They have a Master of Science in Health Coach. And I knew you'd ask. Health coaching is based on the premise that we are living in an era where lifestyle diseases like obesity and diabetes are on the rise, and preventable chronic disease is starting to outnumber acute disease. A health coach is going to supplement the time that your physician or your primary care doctor may not have to spend with you to talk about lifestyle changes, diet, exercise, stress, and how all these things affect your health. Many physicians' offices are utilizing these type of professionals to help their patients once they've been diagnosed with things like diabetes and related illnesses. They can work in hospitals, physicians, schools, corporations.
Get on
Grants.
Get
Yes.
on Instagram or Twitter and hashtag health coach,
Yeah.
and 1 million of them will pop up. You know.
Any other discussion?
I don't
Is
know
there
why I
any
knew that.
opposition to the motion to accept the staff's recommendation? Okay, so that motion passes,
The final item will be handled by Dr. Beebe.
and now we'll move to the HBCU Advisory Council report.
And I know that time is very short for you. Attached to your agenda, to your board materials, is a copy of the 2018 report from the HBCU Advisory Council and the recommendations.
Let me just say one word. I know time is short, but I told the commissioner yesterday, I would not let time interfere with any questions that anyone has that is important. And we will let it, we'll let you ask your questions you need. We'll put everything else aside. This is, we take this very seriously, and we want all of you never to feel like we're under time restraint where you can't ask something.
That's good. Are you going to turn which the questions are in order?
I will. That's why I have this. Well, go ahead, Dr.
Okay.
Denby.
The Advisory Council was formed last year through action of Act 236 under the jurisdiction of the Board of Regents and the leadership of Senator Wesley Bishop and Commissioner Reed. Its charge is to focus on ways to strengthen the capacity of public and private HBCUs to provide the highest quality education and increase opportunities to participate in and benefit from state programs, and to ensure that Louisiana leads the country in HBCU graduates. In its first meeting last year, 4 work groups were established to address elements of the council's charge. Each is co-chaired by at least 2 members of the council, and each contributed to the council's first year-end report of recommendations to help it achieve its work. The report is included in the PRP materials and provides a glimpse of further actions that you will probably be hearing about through the coming year. And again, this is just for your information. I invite you to read the report. Do you have any questions?
This was informational, it doesn't really require a vote, so we're gonna move on. Is there any other business to come before planning, research, and performance? I just would like to add one thing. We did have the failure of a preparatory school last year, right, Dr. Demby? And the Board of Regents staff was instrumental in placing those students in our system schools so that they could continue their course of study. So even though we don't regulate them, we license them, and so we have a stake in all education in our state. And I was very proud that we were able to help these students. And it is important in our licensing process that we, our staff does a fabulous job of doing background on licensing. So I just wanted to say that as a point of information and say thank you. Thank Leanne. Okay. Thank you, Leanne. So, if there's no other business, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So sure do, yeah. First,
Any
second.
discussion? We're adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Regent Adley. We will take a 5-minute break, for everybody, then we will start the meeting at exactly 10:35. So get on your horse. And Supervisor Donnie, thank you so much for making the drive and attending the meeting. You don't know how much we appreciate when you show, and we know what a drive it is for you. All right, looks like Regent David will be joining us shortly. He's here. Good morning. We'd like to call the February Board of Regents meeting to order. As a reminder, our meeting is being streamed live online, so please be aware of that. Next, we'll move on to roll call. Ms. Carolyn, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Regent Adley. Here. Regent Chabert.
Here.
Regent David is here. Regent Ewing.
Here.
Regent Kenny.
Here.
Regent Levy.
Here.
Regent McDonald.
Here.
Regent Meyer.
Present.
Regent Perez is absent. Regent Pryor.
Here.
Regent Seal.
Here.
Regent Solomon.
Here.
Regent Temple.
Here.
Regent Tennyson.
Here.
Regent Weil.
Here.
Regent Wyatt is absent. We do have a quorum.
Thank you, Carolyn, we appreciate it. Our next order of business, we have multiple oaths of office to, you did roll call.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Next order of business is to administer the oath of office to our this old member, Regent Meyer. We are so happy you are back, and Regent Ewing,
I'm the old member.
you're the old member, the oldest new member on the executive committee. Would y'all step to the front and let Uma administer the oath of office, please?
First you, Regent Meyer, and then you. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I,
Aaron Meyer,
What they want out?
solemnly swear
that I will
that I will
support the Constitution and laws
support the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of the state,
and of the state,
and that I will
and that I will
faithfully and impartially
faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties
all the duties
incumbent upon me as
incumbent upon me as
a member of the Louisiana Board of
a
Regents,
member of the Louisiana Board of Regents,
according to the best of my ability and understanding.
according to the best of my ability and understanding.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I, Randy Ewing,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will
support
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States,
of the United
and
States,
that I will
support the Constitution and laws
of the state,
of the state,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon me as a member of the Executive Committee of the Louisiana Board of Regents, according to the best of my ability and understanding.
according to the best of my ability and understanding.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Oma, and congratulations to both of you. We look forward to working with you, Regent Meyer. We're so excited you got reappointed. and we look forward to your commitment to the board and your leadership and your chairman role. You're a vital part of this board. Senator Ewing, we're looking forward to your expertise and knowledge and and whatever. Thank you so much. Next, we move into public comments. Do we have any comments from the public?
No, sir.
None?
No, sir.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll move to next agenda item. That's the approval of the minutes. You all have read the minutes of the January meeting. Do I have a motion moved by Regent Seal, second by Regent Meyer? Do I hear any objection? Any discussion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next, we'll move to committee reports and recommendation. We'd ask that they be reported in Globo. We will all hear. Do I have a motion to have the committee moved by Regent Meyer, second by Regent Tennyson? Any objection?
Any discussion?
Any discussion?
Yes, I
Okay.
need to clarify just a point of information. Dr. Denby so good at clarifying these issues, but though the Board of Regents does not, as Regents, regulate proprietary schools, we do have a proprietary commission, and for which we do appoint members to that does regulate them, and we do have Ms. Christy Gagne here today from that commission. So I just wanted to clarify the statement that I made earlier for the board.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Members, I have just a few quick comments that I want to talk about. Yesterday, I think we can all agree that we had a great meeting here and a great tour. We want to thank the Pennington staff for laying out the red carpet and showing us everything here. But more importantly than that, we wanted all the new members that hadn't been around to be able to see what fine facility they have here. And as most of you heard yesterday in my comments and the commissioner's comments and Pennington's comments about how vital this thing is, not only to the economy and to LSU, but the research in the world, not just in Baton Rouge or in Louisiana, but in the world, and how world-renowned this place is. And we forever can be indebted to the Pennington family for all they do, and Paula Pennington for her continued leadership in this, taking her father's role and keeping it going. So with that, I just want to thank all of you for the engagement that y'all did yesterday, and I think everybody participated. Regent Pryor, I want to tell you congratulations. We understand that there was something named after your grandmother yesterday. We know you weren't being able to be here yesterday, but we appreciate you making a drive this morning to get down here and be with us.
Thank you.
So here we go. Next, we want to move on. Thank Regent Ewing, Pryor, and Adley for attending the events in the Northwest that we did last week. We had a heck of a tour. We mentioned a little bit about it yesterday with the commissioner. We got to see several campuses, the amazing work that was going on at each campus, and we got to engage with students, and one that was like a 70-year-old student that said she was tired of sitting down watching Young and Restless. She laid on the couch one day and said, "Hey, I want to go back to school." And that kind of just made my day. Every place we went had a little something different and a little something extra. And I think we should all be proud of our community and technical colleges. We did Monroe, we did Minden, we did Bipsy, and then the next day we went to Natchitoches and did Northwestern. Again, I can't thank the commissioner enough for her aggressiveness and continued push and drive to see all the students, visit with all the faculty, and let everybody know. As I say over and over and over again, we're here for the students. And I think we've all bought into that, that deal. So thank y'all for that. Next, and I'd like for y'all, you know, whenever we do this, that if any of you can join us when we do it, if it's in your area, we really would appreciate it. And we'll let you know when we go into your areas. That's one of the things that we talked about when the commissioner came here. If we go to UNO, Gary, we'd, you know, love for you to be with us there. You know, Senator Tennyson, when we go out in the west to McNeese and Zoella, we'd like for you to be there with us.
I will.
Okay, lastly, I want to thank staff. Harold Butte, Nikki Godfrey, Meg, Terrence, and Matt Adams. They organized a trip to Washington with the Council of Student Body Presidents. I was able to join them for a couple of days. The commissioner was there, and they did an outstanding job bringing those students around, getting to visit with each congressional staff and congressmen and senators. It's amazing to see what these kids get to witness. Some of them is the first time on an airplane. A lot of them was the first time ever in Washington to see the Capitol and to see the workings of government that they're also interested in being involved in. And I always take it personal because I'm a product of SGA. And it's fun because like Congressman Scalise, he was a SGA guy at LSU. And I've said it before, it's the only election he's ever lost in his life was president of SGA at LSU. And we still don't know who the other guy is who beat him. But anyway, thank you all so much. Having said that, I want to get Regent Kinney. I think y'all took a few pictures, and I'd like to get your comments for the board of what y'all experienced.
We definitely had a great experience. Like I said, this wasn't my first time ever going to D.C., but I could definitely say it was an experience for me because that was my first time ever going to the White House. That was my first time ever going to U.S. Capitol. So those experiences for myself and the other SJ president with Louisiana, we definitely enjoyed it. I kind of made it on a low-key birthday trip because my birthday was like that Monday leading before the trip. So I had a great time. Special shout out to Dr. Butte, Dr. Harold. Dr. Nikki, Ms. Meg, like they definitely took care of us the whole week, and we definitely thank y'all for joining us as well, Commissioner and Chairman. So, all the SJ presidents, we still talking about it. We still have memories. We have Uber ride memories. It's crazy. And definitely, I think one of the things, being for Louisiana, that cold weather. If I ever think about moving to D.C., I remember the day we had to get up for the White House tour. We had to get up like 6 o'clock in the morning. And so, I forgot it was 6 degrees outside. So, myself, I had a trench coat, had the suit on and everything. And I walked outside. I said, I probably can't go today. But we definitely enjoyed definitely going through the TSA checks. That was definitely an eye-opening experience. I never knew. I kind of respect now why there's so much security for the White House. So, but definitely all the SJP, we definitely enjoyed this experience.
Did you bring a video? Is there a video that we're going to show? There we go.
So the Council of Student Body Presidents from all over the state of Louisiana were able to travel to Washington, D.C. from January 29th to March 3rd. And we got to meet with a lot of our congressmen, senators, along with some state representatives as well. It really was a great opportunity for the student body presidents to get to know each other and to discuss about similar issues that they're facing on their campus for a cohesive bond, as well as it was also a good opportunity to learn with the Commissioner of Higher Education, because when Reed and the team, Marty and the Board of Regents, it was also a great opportunity to get to know them a little bit deeper and also talk about strategic initiatives for higher education. In addition, we were able to lobby on behalf of higher education, and we got to ask some of the real questions. How do they view higher education moving forward? Where do they see the federal level's role in higher education? And also the College Transparency Act. We have a lot of good feedback on that as well, and some really good discussions on just what college means to them as they're writing policy on behalf of LSU. And other universities across the state. In addition, I was able to see some familiar faces at the state capitol, from the state capitol, I should say. We were able to mingle with the governor and his wife and to discuss the funding for TOPS and things of that nature, along with his staff, who were all very welcoming. So overall, it was just a really good trip, and overall, being there for DC Mardi Gras as well, because it's connections that I will really use for the rest of my life.
Hi, I'm Jacob Ellis, SGA president at Northwestern State University in Natchitoches, Louisiana. The DC trip that I went on with the Council of Student Body Presidents was such an enlightening experience. I had such a great time talking to congressmen about higher education and voicing my concerns as a student. There were things that we got to experience that I probably wouldn't have gotten to experience if I wouldn't have gone on this trip, such as the tour of the White House that we took. We got to sit on the House floor. It was just a great experience, and I think that it has really enhanced my time here at Northwestern State by giving me an experience that I probably wouldn't have had otherwise.
So last month, I was able to travel to Washington, D.C. on behalf of the University of New Orleans, the best university in Louisiana, to advocate for higher education for students in Louisiana. It was so exciting to talk to our legislators, ask them questions, and sometimes even hold them accountable for defunding higher education or not having students' best interests at heart. I really believe that it's so important for students to advocate for themselves, for them to call their legislators, meet their legislators, MySpace their legislators, everything they need to do to make sure they know and do not forget who they're working for. I got to experience Mardi Gras in Washington, D.C. I live in New Orleans, so I'm pretty judgmental about who has the best Mardi Gras ball, and Washington, D.C. Mardi Gras was really great. I got to hang out with so many of the great leaders across Louisiana, so many cool student body presidents, the UL system. We got to hang out. It was really, really a rewarding and super fun experience. It was really cold, but it was super fun to visit the Capitol and go to the White House, so it was a really great experience.
And look, everybody, each one of the people, Terrence, Nikki, Meg, they were keeping the trains running on time, as I say, and all. But this guy right here,
That's it.
stand up, Mr. Harold Boucher. That cold morning at 6 degrees was the temperature. The wind chill was minus. This man stood in line at the White House and held a place for them kids. Nobody has that kind of dedication. Nobody. I want to thank him. He has done such a great job, and it just touched my heart, and still does when I think of that, of what he did. That's how much y'all mean to him and to this board. So thank you, Harold. Appreciate it. A big old tender heart, I'm sorry.
Before you jump to the other thing, while we have Harold standing and his wife, Pennington, I wanted to make sure that you all know the Pennington story for Harold's son. So we toured, and they talked about how they support students and they launch students as part of their work. But Harold's son participated in a lab here and then went on to Duke to do amazing things, and now is...
He's at Northwestern Chicago, specializing in gastroenterology, nutrition.
So Pennington launched him personally.
Yeah.
Proud Papa.
Thank you,
Proud
Harold.
Papa.
Some of your
Proud
both
Papa.
should be very proud. And Pennington, thank Pennington. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Those
Yes,
are the parents.
yesterday in our board development, we talked about taking a stance on hazing. Each of you got a copy of the proposed letter that we are, or statement we're going to make, and basically it says the Louisiana Board of Regents has zero tolerance for hazing of any kind on any campus by any student, organizations, not just Greek life. Regents will continue to convene campus and system leaders to ensure the uniform hazing policies are fully implemented. Regents declares cultural change on campus is imperative and must include protecting students' voices so that violations are reported and can be acted on to the full extent of the law. Regents support the adoption of robust in-person and electronic training modules and will coordinate the possibility of statewide modules for all campuses to use in order to ensure uniformity of context and fidelity of delivery to students, faculty, and administrators. We want to make sure that the message gets out that the Board of Regents, to all our systems, all our parents, that we have a zero tolerance and we will not put up with this. So I don't think we need to adopt it. I just want to make a statement and let everyone know that we are going forward, unless y'all think it's appropriate to adopt it in the form of a motion.
Do you want it in that form? I think it would maybe give strength that the regents all
Well, then,
supported
I will
that.
entertain a motion. Does any,
I so move that we adopt.
moved and second that we adopt this?
Where did this come from? Did we just, someone do this last night? Was it
Yes.
somewhere else?
We
or-
drafted it from the conversation.
Okay.
Conversation
Gotcha.
yesterday.
Yes,
Or-
absolutely.
Okay, thank
You
you.
were a little late.
No, I was there, I just,
Okay. No, that's,
I saw it boxed, I didn't know if it was cut and pasted from our website or something, I didn't know.
No.
Okay.
no.
Our staff-
It's our,
our staff-
it's our website from Meg. So we got a motion has been second. Any,
I didn't hear the talk
Discussion.
about it, discussion.
He didn't hear the discussion yet.
oh, I'm sorry, okay, we just talked about yesterday that during developmental, program, that we need to take a strong stance on hazing. We offer fraternities, but not only fraternity hazing, band, athletics, whatever it may be. We had a student get killed last week. Or 2 weeks ago, we had 8 or 9 get arrested. A frat house shut down, and
Well, what's the effect of this resolution?
it's just to let people know that we are taking a stance as a Board of Regents that we will not tolerate.
I think we just join our voice in support of all the efforts that's gonna be underway and should be underway to try to prevent hazing.
And there was a law passed
In
last
any
year.
form,
Yeah.
hazing in any form, in any place. And there is law and regulation that we drew up to try to enforce. But I just think that hazing hurts the institution, it hurts the universities, it hurts the state, and it certainly endangers the lives of a lot of our young people, wherever it takes place. And I know right now, we may be thinking about fraternities, but if it's in the band, or wherever it is, that people exercise oppression or abuse to students on campus. And I think it's good, and I would like to see us have that as a formal motion, that this board did in fact come out for zero tolerance. There are
Regent
two,
Pryor,
I know there are 2 bills on hazing in the legislature.
correct. Yeah, and like I said, it's been all over the news, and it's more of a statement that we want to put out a strong message that we will not tolerate it.
That's fine.
Good. Any further discussion?
Can I ask, Chairman, how does this work with, and I wasn't on Regents, obviously, when the policy was developed last year, or the laws that are around it are being developed, but how does this work with what was done previously? Does it necessarily, it complements it?
It certainly complements it. So UMA convenes the executive councils for all of the systems, campuses, to talk about implementation with fidelity. We have done that first, which was Regents was asked legislatively or directed legislatively to make sure there was uniform policy. We have done that. UMA convened the group on this week. And so next step is to make sure we have the training in place. So we just have to keep our eye on it and our voice focused on it to say this matters, and we're doing everything that we can to address it.
I'd like to ask, Regent Kennedy, can you tell us, I mean, from the student perspective, kind of what do students feel about the work that the systems or that Regents are doing around this? Do students feel like is this enough?
I definitely feel like it's enough. I know on the heels of, Louisiana State University had an incident with hazing. I know in the past, Southern University and other institutions in Louisiana had situations as well. So I definitely think it could be pushed a little bit more. I know at Southern University, our staff and our system, they definitely push on our Greek-led organizations and our student organizations as well. So the system that we have at Southern University, our students called Divine Intervention. So that's hazing prevention in a sense. So basically, if you want to be a part of a Greek letter organization, you have to go through that training. You cannot even put in an application for any organization or Greek letter organization.
So what's happening here is getting to the students.
It's getting to the
You can
students. So
validate that for
universities
us.
are implementing heavily their systems. Like if you don't go through the training or aware of what is hazing or how to report hazing, you should not have the opportunity to get a part of no organization. Because if something was to happen, you can't say, well, Southern University and tell me, or Louisiana State University and tell me, what is the effects of hazing, or what is hazing. There's still a lot of students who don't know what hazing is. I mean, I think now a lot of organizations, those who try to haze, are trying to get around the fact that find cracks in the system, in a sense. I marched in the band. I'm a part of different organizations, so I've seen other students not know what hazing is, and so they go through things and stuff happens to them, and they don't even know it's hazing until somebody tells them or properly informs them what hazing is. So I definitely think it'd be more of a push, but universities are implementing their respective training and ways, but we definitely need to keep it on all cylinders going forward.
Thank you. I think it's important that we just
Yeah.
make sure that we always check in with our students
Yeah,
and make sure what we're
absolutely.
doing here gets there and, it's actually making a difference.
Absolutely. And look, I'm a former Greek. I was, pledge class president. I was an active and very involved in my fraternity. I don't think any of us want to stop it. But we have to send a message. A kid got killed last year, and again, several got arrested.
I played sports in college, and we hazed the freshmen, and I was in a fraternity. We hazed each other, and it's such a cultural change. We have to find a way for students can report it anonymously and then come down hard on the organizations. Because right now, I remember when I was a young attorney, we did a case in Mr. Levy's district at Louisiana Tech, Kappa fraternity. This must have been the late 80s, and a guy sued them or almost got beat to death. That was in the late 80s, a lawsuit that was going through the Court of Appeal in the 90s, early 90s, and we're still talking about that, 2 or 3 decades
I just think it's
later. But this is really important.
Yeah.
And I just, if we could, when you go out to the institutions, make sure they come up with concrete ways where any band member, football player, any fraternity, I don't think the sororities do all this crazy stuff to each other. It's guys.
You'd be surprised.
And, that people can report it anonymously and that they're investigated, reported to law enforcement, and, crack down upon, tell that fraternity, you can't be on this campus.
Yeah, well, I think that's what you're starting to see, Regent Pryor, and that's what UMA's gonna be involved with the systems, and we're gonna let them know, and I think this sends a strong message to them that we will not tolerate it.
So you put a piece of paper from a lawyer for too long, we start making edits. I like everything about it. I would probably make the Louisiana Board of Regents has zero tolerance for hazing of any kind, period. I might just leave it at that and then go to the next 3 paragraphs. If you wanted to keep the rest of it, I would put, this would include, this includes but is not limited to hazing on or off any campus and by any student organizations, and not just Greek life. I would probably change just that linguistics to.
So you have a substitute motion to change the wording on here?
I would put a period after kind,
Yes.
and for the rest of that line, I would put, this includes but is not limited to hazing on or off any campus, comma, by any student organization, comma, and does not just include Greek life, period.
Okay, Regent Levy, are you good with putting that in your motion? Perfect. Okay, moved by Regent Levy, second by Regent Ewing. Any further discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Can I clarify
Well-
just the last little piece, just so that I've got it right so we can issue it? So, by any student organization,
Yeah, so Louisiana Board of Regents has zero tolerance.
yeah, got that
hazing,
part.
period.
This includes but is not limited to hazing on or off
on or
campus.
off any campus, comma, by any student
student
organization,
organization.
comma, and is not included to just Greek life.
And it's not
Limited to just Greek life, yeah.
to Greek
Are we
life.
good
to
with
Greek-
that?
To Greek life. Okay, got it.
Okay, good. All right, the other thing I want to say, although she's not here today, I wanted to extend a special congratulations to Regent Sonia Perez. She was recently announced as the 2019 chair for lobby, and we all congratulate her on that. in case you're watching. All right, any other business? We can go to Commissioner's report first.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I want to say ditto with an exclamation point on the staff's fantastic work with our COSP student body presidents in DC. Fantastic. It was wonderful. We had lots of business meetings. We had an opportunity to meet with appropriations and staff that lead both House and Senate education committees as they think about higher ed reauthorization. Lots of good conversations about what other states are doing and what we can learn from, sort of sharing. So that was all really great conversations. We had a slide to talk about what we are doing on hazing, but I believe that your action that you just took obviously is important. We do have a policy statement, it's a uniform policy. We will keep the board informed on the implementation work. Regent Pryor on the legislation, which gives bystanders protection anonymously, but also sets expectations about what students need to report on and what campuses need to do as well. And so we will certainly keep moving that forward with you. The next thing is I wanted to mention that I have had an opportunity, and thank you so much for those of you who've been able to join. I have had an opportunity to visit all of our public institutions. All 32, check mark, are done. And so I am excited about, of course, visiting the private institutions. They've been waiting their turn, and so we'll do that. But these campus visits give me an opportunity to meet with, of course, administrators and faculty, but to engage students in roundtable conversations that are very important to ask, you know, what's the secret sauce to student success, and what are your challenges, and what are you concerned about? What's your joy? And how can we have good policy work happening in Baton Rouge? That is informed by the work we do visiting the campuses, and so I'm grateful to the campuses for hosting and looking forward to continuing those conversations because they're so important. And for the board members who were able to attend, thank you so much for doing that. It's very important. And to my chairman, who's always at the ready to visit with students and others. The next thing I wanted to mention was we've had some really good press coverage. Meg, our strategic communicator, has been on it. And so I did visit with the Baton Rouge Press Club. There were lots of conversations, of course, about hazing, around affordability, about master plan, a number of things. You see there some of the good coverage that we have had. I think it's good foreshadowing for the master plan conversation we will have next month and for all of the policy work that we will do with K-12, with higher education, and with workforce. So we want to send a very clear message that we see educational attainment work, talent development as a broad tent exercise, not just a public post-secondary exercise. And so I think we are having success in sending that important message. Finally, I wanted to mention that we had a great signing ceremony with the governor and all the systems. We have announced that we will have 30 new veteran centers opening, veterans resource centers opening. And Regent Adley and I had a chance to visit LSU Shreveport's Veterans Center and visit with student veterans as well. So we have over 8,000 veterans in Louisiana, and they bring in more than $185 million in federal GI Bill funding to our institutions. So we want to make sure that they have the resources and the support to navigate and to get the help and that they need to be successful, veterans and their families. So that's important as well. And then the last thing I want to say is just about staff training and work and development. We are very focused on supporting the professional development of our Regent staff. We've had an all-staff training. We've had middle manager support training. We had a fantastic training that we asked the system presidents to send staff to as well on the dynamics of intergenerational poverty. And how do you really think about supporting individuals to move them from poverty to prosperity? It was a fascinating conversation around the mindset and the language and the family challenges of people in poverty. As you know, that is a significant challenge in our state. And I think that understanding that more closely will help us to do a better job at our work. And so we will look forward to further rollouts of that conversation as well. So that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman. I'm very excited about the work.
Thank you, and once again, I can't say enough about what our commissioner has done and around the state, and I know, I thought I ran fast, and I thought I ran hard. I can't keep up with her. She rolls, and she's like Houdini. Every time you turn around, she's there. When you blink, she's not there, she's somewhere else. And that's something we all can be proud of. Any other business to come before the board this morning? Yeah, next meeting is gonna be March 27 at the Claiborne Building. Make sure you mark your calendars. And I think that's it. If there's any further business to come before the committee?
Chairman, I just want to say thank you to, I mean, I think that on behalf of the new members, perhaps, I think this, yesterday and today, and what we did last month, and the board manual, and the availability of Dr. Reed and staff has been tremendous, and it's been a real help getting us on board.
We
So thank you for
appreciate it.
that.
That's what we
Thank you.
strive for. That's what we committed.
And my board buddy, right here, called me on a weekend and got me prepped,
Look,
so.
she
Right.
will call on Sunday, she will
Right.
call at night, trust me. I know it well, she was my board buddy.
Moving to have.
Before it was cool to be board buddy.
That's right.
So, do I have a motion? Motion from Regent Wild, second by Regent Solomon. Any discussion, any objection? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank y'all.